Hey everyone, Margarita here again. I want to talk in this video today about how this organized group of psychopaths has way underestimated my level of intelligence and how they had set out to destroy my life for a very long period of time and carry this all out long term, not realizing that I'm 10 to 20 steps ahead of what they've been doing for quite some time. Now, because I was aware how deranged my mother was, not really fully understanding the bigger picture of why all this was going on all along, but knowing every step of the way that there's a really serious issue, which is why I cut all ties at age 18 and walked in the opposite direction, and just thought I was going to go about my life and build my life and leave everybody behind and leave the chaotic mess behind and everything she was causing, not realizing all the problems I had along the way all those years were being created by her and all these people that were willing to help her, without my knowledge, all being done behind the scenes with no contact, no relationship. So it took me some time to figure all that out. I didn't start piecing this together until about 7 years ago, once I became severely injured, once I was left with no treatment, and figuring out that my mother was actually behind all of that as a Beaumont Hospital employee. That's what prompted the search into a deeper dive into all of this while this had been going on, and then continuing forward with her very strange behavior, still at a distance, still no direct contact or anything during any of this. But what she was causing behind the scenes once all that occurred became so extravagant that it just couldn't be ignored either. So, what this organized group of psychopaths, I'm going to continue to call them, because each of them has to have some type of mental and personality disorder, probably numerous of them, for someone to carry out or continue to participate in carrying something like this out against another person who's completely innocent, minding their own business. The only word to describe that would be psychopathic. So these people they all have some type of narcissistic, psychopathic, sociopathic tendencies. At the very least, I'm sure each one of them could be diagnosed with something. I am very well rehearsed in mental disorders and personality disorders. With the degree of harassment and everything I've experienced along the way, I know quite a bit about that stuff, even though that's something I've never studied. So, with what they all thought along the way, just proves their mentality and how deep this all really is, because this has been going on for decades. And many of these people have been involved long term. Some of them haven't been involved long term, but the fact that all these people were willing to participate in something so extravagant in destroying somebody's life, all from behind the scenes, never meeting that person, never truly knowing anything about that person, just believing some deranged lunatic who's spreading an entire false narrative, growing it over time, gaining all this praise. Oh, poor me, my daughter's such a this, that, and the other thing. None of that was ever real. Nobody ever took the time to look into me. Nobody ever questioned what they were being told about me. They all were so quick to just hop on board and believe the deranged lunatic, no questions asked. So what they have all what they've all participated in long term, it's psychopathic. And then every step along the way, and how much more extravagant each step they made along the way became, just told how much bigger the story really was deep down, which was how I eventually pieced everything together. Because the steps that were gone to, all the lengths that they all went to, individually and together, were very extravagant. And the amount of crimes that were committed to go the lengths that they've all gone, very extravagant. None of that is normal. People don't spend that much time and energy and or money coming after somebody unless there's a really good reason for that, especially somebody who's done nothing wrong and is minding their own business and building their own life completely separate from all these people and agencies, or trying to be. That just says, you know, that there's something way bigger going on. So about 7 years ago, that's where I became first red flag that this was more serious than I initially thought. All prior to that, my entire life, yes, I knew there was a serious issue, which is exactly why there's been no contact, no relationship, because anytime I tried to tell somebody that this problem was going on, even from a very young age, all along the way, the response I got from other people was not helpful. They just didn't want to believe that that was going on, because when I use the words my mother, they think of their own sweet, loving mother and just continue to say, well, why would your mother do that? Or if they actually knew her, they would say, oh, she's such a sweet, nice lady. She would never do that. No, that's a fake personality. So I gave up trying to tell anybody a long time ago, because that was always the response that I got, which is why I just cut ties and went in my own direction. But the fact that it went on for as long as it did and is still going on today, and these idiots are still behind the scenes, still trying to carry out more crimes against me, doing whatever they can to cause me to go to jail long term, or end up deceased, or whatever it is they're trying to do. They're obviously not going to peg me on paper as being mentally disabled and mentally disordered and incapable. You're never going to be able to do that with the amount of videos I've released and what I've already proven to the world. So now they know that that step is out of the bag, and they can't, that's not even an option for them to try anymore, which was, I guess, initially. But their two remaining options, they're still in the background trying to carry this out, because they're still attempting to gain access to what's left of this trust fund. So that is the root reason for all of their behavior, why all this was going on, except for the fact that they didn't realize that I've known how my mother operated every step of the way all these decades. So I took measures that would protect me in layers along the way, because I always knew I had to be ahead, waiting for the next disaster, because at the drop of a dime, I would have to run. I'd have to be on the run. I'd have to leave homes behind. I'd have to drop down to nothing but my car and leave. And that's happened so many times that they're not aware that my life training and what I've been dealing with all along has prepared me for the longevity of all of this. And my next moves were always several avenues ahead, different options ahead, and quite a bit of money. I'd always have to have quite a bit of money stacked, ready to go for the next disaster, because this kept happening all along the way, which is why there's been so many wipeouts. But these people who agreed to help and participate in these crimes and take bribes and think that they have something more to gain once the job is complete, because I do believe they all thought they were going to gain even more money once the job was finished. Then they'd have access to the rest of the funds. They'd each get a little piece of the pie, not realizing that I'm extremely intelligent and I've known all this was going on for some time. I've just always been very busy, because I've had to stay that far ahead of the game for decades. So when somebody has as much going on in their life as I do, and what I've been building all these decades by myself, there isn't too much room for me to focus on this or that, or there wasn't all those years. So I stayed focused on everything I was doing while all this harassment and crimes was going on in the background, all targeted at me. And none of these people ever stopped to think about who I really am as a person or what I really have going on in my life. They really believed I was this broke, mental disorder drug addict off running the streets somewhere. Not one person ever tried to take a step into my real life and look at everything I've actually done. Everything they've all been told about me, every single person believed. Even if they have crossed paths with me and I sit there and talk in reality, they still jump back to the false narrative anyway within a minute of the conversation, or repeatedly. So if we cross paths more than one time, then it would happen each time. So, but they're not realizing all of this, how long all this was going on, and how long I've known, and how I've had to operate in my waking life every step of the way due to all of this. And due to all of that, it caused my intelligence to be 10, 20 steps ahead of where they're at. And my knowledge in the world and my knowledge on how things work and dealing with this system and that agency and this broken system over here. And I've been dealing with this for decades because of my mother's criminal harassment. There was no other way to build my life or carry out my plans without accommodating all this harassment and all these crimes, and figuring out how to be ahead of each system and each agency and each situation or any potential matters that could be thrown my way. I've been accommodating this for decades. So they're way underestimating my level of skill in the world. Because if you really look at my real life, and I've been 100% self-employed for 13 years, then obviously I'd have to be pretty high up on the chain to continue to carry out everything I've been carrying out and then accommodate a 7.5 year extreme injury where I was incapacitated and homebound for 3 years and still managed to somehow hold on to everything and keep it all running while this criminal harassment is going on. And all these many agencies and people are getting added to the bucket, and they're all attacking and harassing as well during all of that. More and more and more getting added to it all during that time. So obviously my level of skill would have to be pretty high in order to accommodate all of that and be able to carry out what I've carried out along the way. Not one of these people have ever stopped to think about any of this. They just continued to believe whatever they were told, no questions asked. Even if they do cross paths with me, they're still on a whole other page in reality. Doesn't matter what I'm saying, what's coming out of my mouth. They're still in a whole other reality that isn't a reality. It's a false narrative. Those are delusions. So all of these people are psychopaths. They're all delusional. Everything they've been operating on is delusional. The fact that you think that you can take somebody's inheritance and money that was left for somebody fraudulently and then pin a bunch of crimes on them, and you feel entitled and have this irrational belief that this money belongs to you for some reason and not me, not the person it was left for. That's extremely delusional. That's extremely irrational. That's psychopathic. And then to continue to commit all these crimes along the way for decades, carry it out for decades, and get so many more people involved along the way. And each person just jumping on board as if that's all real and what they're doing is right, and they have rights to what's mine. It doesn't make any sense. That's psychopathic. So underestimating my intelligence was a very wrong move on their part. None of them realized who I truly was. And then due to my injuries, it caused a significant shift in how my life is ran and how my plans going forward and my business plans, my life plans, how everything is carried out, because that was all set in advance prior to that injury. And after three other solid wipeouts, complete wipeouts down to nothing, having to rebuild from nothing. And then that happened. So once the shift came where I had to change how everything was going to go going forward, they didn't realize that the injury was that serious. It is all very real. None of it's fake. I paid my own way out of it. And during that time, I was forced to do a lot of reading, a lot of digging, a lot of piecing things together. Stuck being homebound, nothing I can do about it. So during that time, I used it to my advantage, and I only pieced more and more things together along the way. So what they weren't taking into consideration of how deep my level of skill is regarding all of this and what's all been going on along the way. So as I was digging my way out of the extreme part of the injury, starting to begin to be able to piece little pieces of life back together, which it's still not today, but because there's so much chaos, so much harassment and crimes, there's no way for me to piece it all together fully until arrests are made, because there's just been so much fallout and it's been ongoing for so long that there's no way out. But once I began to piece all that together, kind of from the time I was actually piecing things together about 4 to 5 years ago, all the way to the current day, I had to do so differently, going forward differently, and making sure not one wrong move was made, or having to make sure the bare minimum things that I need to get through each week are maintained. That changed how I saw the world, that changed how I saw how my income was made, how it was dispersed, what I had to do to keep us alive going forward. And then mixed with, because the crimes were all going on, the harassment's all going on during this time, me seeing that and then having to accommodate that in, and then try to plan for the next hiccup each step of the way. What they didn't take into consideration was how far in depth I was with the knowledge of what they were all up to, what they were all doing. Again, I had went to the FBI in 2022. So that tells a lot. In the last 5 years or so, if I had enough to go to the FBI in 2022, that means that my level of skill is a lot deeper than anybody ever expected, because it wasn't until the last year or two that these psychopaths realized how far ahead of the game I really was that they were playing, and how I was aware of what they were doing. I was gathering evidence every step of the way, as I already was prior to that. There's just been so many crimes and so many agencies involved. The amount of FOIA requesting that's been done, it's just taking so much time. And I was already requesting documents prior to 2022. But no one realized, A, that I knew how to do that, B, that I know how many agencies are involved. I know the majority of the people who are involved. I'm sure there's some I've never met. But they did not realize that I had been piecing this together every step of the way. I was fully aware of what I needed to do going forward and what I was going to be carrying out. It was just a matter of time of getting everything, all the chaos and the fallout situated so I can continue on with the next steps, because I still have to maintain everything that I have running in order to keep us alive and keep things running, because I also can't go back and work for somebody else again either. So none of these people were living in reality about any of this. I've left so many clues and Easter eggs along the way, and not one person, not one light bulb came on with one person that's what I was doing every step of the way. Some of them handing the evidence right over directly to me or directly to Charmaine, many times along the way. No one really looking at who I am and my level of intelligence, and that here I am gathering all of the stuff, saying certain things to get certain reactions with certain people or certain agencies. And then based on their response, then I'm able to tell their level of involvement, or that they're hiding more than what they're saying, or there's something more to it. Based on certain responses, then I'm able to get a little bit more information, because again, usually I have some information going into each situation. I'm not just walking into everything blind. And then they weren't configuring how I had been planning on releasing these videos for some time, and that I was going to be exposing them every step of the way. It was just a matter of me getting myself to the point where I could release the videos. So none of them were thinking that any of this would be going public, or the person that they're harassing is extremely intelligent, is going to be outing you publicly, and you're all going to be arrested in the end. Nobody ever thought that in their mind, because again, they have some level of mental disorder or personality disorder, perceiving themselves to be so much better than me, or for whatever reason they think they're more intelligent than me, or they're just better than me because they went about their lives differently than me. But then again, I was forced to go about my life differently due to the long-term decades of criminal harassment and everything that's gone on. I was forced to go in a different path. It wasn't by choice. And by doing that, I acquired that much more level of skill, because my level of skill came from actual life experience and talking to many different individuals along the way, many different forms of employment and many different lines of work and business. And my level of knowledge is so extravagant. Most people in the world never get that level of knowledge ever. They don't cross paths with enough people to acquire that level of knowledge. So all of these people still not knowing anything about me or any of these things that I just said about myself, none of them realizing any of that's my reality, or I'm not sure why nobody tried to actually look into me, but they all just wanted to jump on board and help participate in all of this. That makes no sense. If you're going to risk everything you've worked for to that point in your life, depending on how long you've been involved in all this, don't you think you would want to look into the person you're going to start criminally harassing before you jump on board and agree to commit all these crimes? That kind of doesn't make any sense. But I guess that goes with some of that mental and personality disorder, because people with those disorders don't see things properly. So they also don't make proper decisions. So that, I guess that makes sense. But yeah, I can definitely say there's numerous levels of mental and personality disorders involved with these individuals who have all participated in this. And then not understanding my level of skill, just believing whatever delusions they were told. Or, I mean, all it takes is a simple Google search, which then you should be questioning why I live in the house I live in at that point, because I've owned this house for 8 years, so that doesn't make any sense. Or even if you got your information directly from me, still doesn't make any sense. You should really be doing some digging before you involve yourself in something that large scale of a criminally organized activity. You should really do some research before you get involved in something like that. So, but nobody was expecting me along the way to be releasing these videos, even though I knew quite some time ago that's what was going to be happening. Nobody knew that I knew all of these organizations and the majority of the individuals involved in all of this, because I didn't tell any of these people, that I didn't directly tell each person that they were like, I know you're involved, or at no time did I do that with anybody or any agency. I just began requesting documents and gathering information on my own, because I saw a long time ago that nobody was going to help me address this situation. Even as a small child needing help, or even as a young adult, I pretty much gave up at that point. I was a very busy person for a very long time, so never really thought about it from that point forward until the 2013 escapade. Still, even during that incident, many agencies, many people involved, no one's looking at the bigger picture, or what I've been gathering along the way, or what I've been up to. And they continue to leave a paper trail of their crimes, each escapade, each crime spree, each batch of harassment, each thing that goes on. There's actual proof of each thing that's gone on. So that kind of blows my mind, because there's physical proof on paper of the majority of it, or video or text or whatever. There's all different types of proof along the way. So it's beyond me why nobody thought that this paper trail of their crimes was ever going to be found, or that I wasn't gathering it along the way, or that there's ways to track the bribery payments that people have taken along the way. Because even if you were to close your bank account, the feds can go back and trace who's been involved in these payments along the way. That can all be found out, especially because I know the majority of the people and agencies involved. So, I mean, these people are really ignorant, and then try to peg me as dumb, and really it's the opposite. And then here I am still standing. I'm one single individual who's sick and injured, and I'm fighting against all these people and agencies who've been attacking me and harassing me for decades. And I'm still standing, and I'm over here single handedly taking down an entire organized group, who've been committing RICO crimes against me for some time. And not one person stopped to think at any point that they were ever going to get caught, or that that's what I was doing all along, getting ready to take these idiots out. And I mean, there's some people along the way where I made it clear that my mother's been involved in some ongoing large scale crimes against me, and that I wouldn't be stopping until arrests were made, because I'm already aware that all the disruptions and the chaos and the problems in my life are caused by those actions. And in order to pick up the pieces of my life going forward, that has to stop. So arrests have to be made. No ifs, ands, or buts about it. There's people I've said that to, and then they still think I'm a joke. So it's kind of funny that they all continue to operate, still continue to do all this stuff, especially with the amount of things that are on film, or on picture or video, or on paper, or legalized reports, or however you want to look at it. Between all of it, there is so much evidence. It can all be pieced together, especially with the bribery payments that I know exist. And then the other thing is, I know exactly where some of the stolen money was moved into a trust. My mother had moved some of this into a trust for herself after she stole all my dad's assets too. She had been collecting it in a separate bank account behind my dad's back all along the way, while portraying herself to have custody of my older two kids, which is how she gained access to the money fraudulently. After she stole my dad's assets and money, then she moved it all into trust for herself over with Shea Law in Southfield. So she put everything in trust for herself that she stole from myself and my dad. And they must be involved in the crimes, because now I've spoken to them twice, and because nothing has happened. I mean, I can prove their involvement, because they're not trying to admit they did anything wrong, and it's provable where the assets came from that they're holding, that some of those assets were fraudulently stolen from me and moved to them, in trust for my mother with them. So there's proof along the way of all of this. I don't know where these people's heads are at, or why they just seem to think I'm so dumb, just because one person is repeating how dumb I am, or how I didn't do this in life, or I just go the wrong way, or I'm just so uneducated, I'm so stupid, and I'm so naive, and oh, look where she works, or look what she does, and blah 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 blah. Every form of employment I've ever had is a very high paying uh like industry. So I've worked in numerous industries. All of them are high paying. They're all mid to high paying industries. So that makes no sense. All along the way, the first industry I started at 14 years old, gainfully employed by 16. That makes no sense. Every step of the way, I would never be at some low paying industry, wasting my time and my life, on top of that fact that I've been self employed for a long time and had never planned on working for someone else again. And the only reason all these hiccups occur are because of the harassment and the crimes and the wipeouts. Even then, I'm still holding on to everything. So that still doesn't add up. All these delusions being repeated about me, or who I am as a person, or how I conduct myself, or how I make my money, or whatever's going on. Still, nobody's in reality. They don't know this or that. These are all delusions being repeated amongst themselves. Um, and then they just run with how stupid I am because of whatever they see in that moment, or whatever they've been told, or whatever they think. And then they just see one little snippet of my life and don't actually see any of what's going on. And they're still running with their delusionary frame of mind. Again, psychopathic. There's really no other word to describe these people's behavior other than psychopathic, because who does all that? Who participates in something like that? When there's somebody who's completely innocent, living their own life completely separate for decades, and all these people are criminally harassing and involving themselves and getting more and more individuals involved every step of the way, to the point where I have such a long list. It's going to take quite a long time for arrests to be made because of the level of investigation that would have to go on with the amount of people and agencies that are involved. But yeah, I do have that list. I did release some videos on some of it, and some people I haven't even spoken about yet. Some agencies I haven't even spoken about yet. There's much more to come regarding all that. And there is still some more FOIA requested documents and video that I have to get. So I will be back with more on those things, but I just wanted to film the video on how everybody way underestimated my level of intelligence. When it's very clear, even if you did a quick Google search, or you look one little snippet into my life, everything I've been through, I wouldn't be where I am today and self-employed and have everything running if I was really truly that low on the totem pole. Doesn't make sense. Again, psychopathic. So yeah, I'll be back with another one. Thanks. Bye.